And this is Chris from Brothaspeak Podcast, where we interview the innovative, the daring, and the bold in regards to Black LGBT and also providing informative information. Now, I came across this particular person actually when it came to Twitter. And this person actually had a book that actually came out some years ago to discuss his career, and I wanted to make sure, I always wanted to kind of go into the careers of someone within sports, and actually didn't come up until recently, and I said, who would be a good person to interview as my first sports athlete who was in the field, but also came true within his own during the process. And I came across an athlete called Jeff Commings, who actually wrote a book called Odd Man Out, True Stories of a Gay Black Swimmer. And his career was something of pretty much extraordinary to me. And I said, wait a minute, let me see, can I interview this person? So just to give a quick little introduction, he actually got into the field of swimming at the age of 4 in the boys club. And actually, later on, 2 years later, got his first trophy at 6 and went on to become the top 16 and 50-meter breast. 1991 became his breakout year and became the third 100-meter national championships, bronze holder in the Pan American team in Cuba. And later on got a full ride scholarship at University of Texas, Austin, which also he got third place in the 100 breast sophomore year, and wound up ending his collegiate career as an 8-time All-American U.S. national team member and also 4-time conference champion in the Southwest Conference. A lot of stuff going on here. And also, during that time, he received his degree in journalism. Later on, he actually went on to get 2 Olympic trials in 1992 and also 1996, and later on retired in 1998. But that didn't really last so long because he also went into the Masters and also accomplished some great things there, wound up being the world record accomplished holder during that particular time. Did I say everything? Did I say a good amount about what all the things you accomplished here?
You've accomplished a lot of them. There are a few more things you missed, but we can cover some of those a little bit later.
All right, good. And so that person is Mr. Jeff Commings. How are you, Jeff?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me on your program.
Thank you. I when I came across, some of the things, I said, wow, number one, to actually meet, which we have actually seen in the past, but I haven't really met many Black swimmers. And that was one of the things that also kind of fascinated me about your story and also your history. And I said, that would want to be a great story to start with. But I wanted to kind of find out first, what was your fascination about swimming?
Well, as you said, when I was 4 years old, I started swimming. I was pretty much thrown in the pool to do swim lessons because at that age, there was no other sport for me to do. My older brother, who was 10 years older than me, was already playing ball and football and all those things that you do. But I didn't have a sport for me. So my mother said, take swim lessons. And then I just floundered for a little bit, didn't like it at first, but I really took to it after a while. And I found very quickly it was the only sport I wanted to do. When it was time to even think about trying other sports, I said, no, I just want to be a swimmer. I could not, you couldn't get me out of the pool. Especially when I was 11, 12, 13 years. It was impossible. I always wanted to go to the pool. If I had some time off, if I was, early for swim practice, I would hang around the pool. I wouldn't be anywhere else. And it's true to this day. I just can't get enough of swimming.
Now during this particular time, and this is where exactly were you residing at that time?
I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, which has a lot of competitive swim teams. But the swim team I actually started with, 5 or 6 years old, was at the Herbert Hoover Boys Club. It was an all-Black swim team. And at the time, I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think, wow, this is weird. Of course, when you're 6, you're not really thinking about that kind of thing. But as I grew up and started to go to more swim meets and see that there were different types of people with different skin colors, I still didn't think it was weird. I just thought, hey, we're just this swim team that happens to have people who look like me, and I never thought that it was a weird thing to be a Black swimmer until many years later when I started to travel outside of St. Louis for swimming. But even then, I never thought, I'm in the wrong sport, I better get out of the sport, or this is really kind of weird that I'm a black swimmer.
And that's kind of funny because, I guess you're right. For someone, if, around that particular time seems to be normal, a lot of areas just don't seem to be pushing swimming as much. And I'm pretty sure people said the same thing about golf, but swimming was one of those things that even I growing up, no one ever really said, go swimming. It was just nothing, because it's not like there's a lot of pools around the areas for a lot of kids to be growing up and swimming around. Then again, I could be wrong. Maybe you can kind of elaborate a little bit more on that. But definitely, yeah, I could definitely see how that, for a lot of people, that can definitely be a little bit something I'd consider to be out of place.
You're absolutely right that for many black people, there's not a lot of pool access. And I'm not even talking just inner city communities. I'm talking about anywhere. And when you look at pool space, there's usually the country clubs, which are very exclusive. At least you have to be a member in order to swim in their pools. And then there are the public pools, which are usually pretty good, but they're only open certain times of the year. And even if you're in a place where maybe down the street there's an indoor pool, sometimes it's not the best. Sometimes you look at a pool and you're like, well, what's the fun of that? And of course, there is the thing among black people about swimming, especially among women. I don't want to get my hair wet. They go to salons and they get all these weaves and they get all these treatments to their hair, and they're told, don't get your hair wet. And so they think, well, I'm not going to go to a swimming pool, and so what's the point of that? And then among men, I can't speak for all of them, but just growing up knowing that, I was surrounded by talk of football and baseball and basketball, and these are the big money sports. And when you're watching all this on TV and you hear about people like Michael Jordan, and even later in my life, Tiger Woods making millions of dollars, you're like, you don't hear swimmers making millions of dollars, even though it is possible. But you think, well, I'm going to play football. I'm going to be a professional football player because I know you can make millions of dollars. Football is pretty easy to do. All I have to do is run and catch a ball. And, swimming is actually kind of still the same way. You work hard for a goal, you achieve that goal, and you're properly rewarded. Even the best swimmers, like Michael Phelps, excluded, are not paid as well as professional athletes in other sports. But it's changing. We've had our first female African-American gold medalist in swimming in 2016, and I think that's really helped. And USA Swimming is really pushing to get more minorities in swimming, and they've been doing so for the past 9 years. So it's changing, but it's still very difficult to change that perception of what swimming is, because beyond the fact that you can get in and cool off on a hot summer day, most people don't hear about the fact that, you can be part of an organized swim team and excel and do a lot of great things. And I wasn't told that when I was younger. I just, I just knew that swimming was for me, but, and I was told about all these extraordinary things you could do and places you can go when you're older. But, it's very hard to go into any black family's house and they're talking about, LeBron James and how much money he makes. Even on a day off from playing basketball, he makes millions, and that's hard to counter when you hear, a swimmer in a year makes enough to make the rent and probably could do some nice things in life, but you can't buy a mansion,
right?
And so it's really hard to counter that perception. But like I said, I know there are a lot of people who could do very well, who are football players, who could do very well, and they can have a very good career as a young person in swimming while they play football. And but I just don't know why that conversation isn't as strong as it could be.
When I look at your career, and of course, one thing you got to always have is passion. No matter what, you got to have passion, whether it's football, baseball, or track, or passion always seems to be the thing. And even for you, when you're, going into the ages of 6, and then later on, doing things, being considered to be one of the top 16 in the 50-meter breast here, and to go on and first off to receive that encouragement. How was that for you and your family? I mean, because a lot of kids these days, it's not always the best thing. I mean, sometimes, then again, I don't necessarily know the cost to even be a part of some events like this within swimming. I know tennis is one of those expensive sports. Golf is one of those expensive sports. When it came down to keeping you as a kid within swimming, how was it within your family? How well was that received and supported throughout?
Single mothers just in general have to, single parents, whether single mothers or single fathers, have to make a lot of sacrifices. All you really have to buy is a little bit of gear and then the membership to be on your swim team. But other than that, it's not very expensive.
Good.
And, from very early on, as I said, I chose swimming. My mother didn't push me into it when I was 12. She said, you must keep swimming. I mean, she gave me options. And I said, I want to keep swimming. And as I got better and better in the sport, she continued to encourage me. She, did not blink when it cost almost $1,000 to travel to another state for me to be able to swim against some of the best swimmers in the country.
Wow.
She just said, okay, we'll make it happen.
Wow.
And that was, the rest of my family, extremely supportive. Nobody ever said, don't you want to be a millionaire and play football? You could be a professional football player. I mean, everybody knew how passionate I was about swimming, and they just kept supporting me. And, if my mother couldn't take me to swim practice, my brother did. My grandparents lived down the street from one of the places where I swam. So after school, I would stay with them, and then I'd ride the bus to swim practice, and then my mother would pick me up. So there were always ways that people in my family supported me growing up, and they never discouraged it, especially when I got to the point where I was, one of the best swimmers in the country. I mean, that was, it was something that I never thought was possible. I would always look in the present moment and say, all I want to do is just swim as fast as I can. And, then the result would take care of itself. And in many ways, I was in that case, I was blind to the fact even that, as I was progressing, that there were very few black people who were ranking as high as me in swimming. And I just wanted to do my own thing. And, in some ways, maybe that wasn't a good thing because I could have been a big voice for getting more minorities in swimming once I started to realize this. But I had so much encouragement. Even from other people in the sport, nobody ever looked at me and said, you're in the wrong sport, or said, why don't you go play football or, run track. I always had support. I never heard anything negative about my involvement in the sport. And in fact, I think because I was one of the few black people to rank so high nationally, and even after a while internationally, I think that the encouragement even grew from that.
I do love the fact that really the support was just consistent. Now, I do want to ask you, during your career, and I'm pretty sure around this time that you were going on these great competitions and things of nature, I'm sure along the way, did it feel as though you were the only black person on the team at times? And with that, because I know you started off in the urban league, in the urban areas, and everyone was black. But as time went on and you got further along and you began to climb that ladder of success, did it wind up feeling alone in the process of during this, or it just basically felt exactly where you're supposed to be because of your support from your family?
Yeah, I felt where I was supposed to be, just because based on my times, this is where I deserve to be, and I didn't feel like I should be swimming with there should be a segregated meet for us black swimmers. And where it really started to stand out for me was at my second national championships, which was in Austin, Texas, and I was 16 years old. And I was walking on deck and just kind of minding my own business. And coming toward me was another black swimmer who I had heard of but had never met. And I was shocked, I guess. Like, oh my gosh, there's somebody here who looks like me. And I met him, and we didn't talk about, oh my gosh, us brothers got to stick together. But we just kind of, I guess it was just this informal acknowledgement.
Gotcha.
That we're one of the few, and we've got to really represent. And I think we did. But I made my first national junior team when I was 15, and the national junior team is made of swimmers under the age of 18, and there were 2 other black swimmers on the team, 2 females. They were black, and so I didn't feel out of place then. And again, we didn't have this little chat amongst ourselves and say, I know we feel a little out of place. Let's really show we belong here. I guess It was just that implied acknowledgement. Gotcha. And we just kind of moved on from that. So I never, ever felt out of place, even when I was on the Pan American team. In 1991, I was the only black swimmer on the team. But I didn't feel different. Nobody treated me any different. I knew it was a big accomplishment. I knew it was, I believe it was the highest that a black swimmer, African-American swimmer, had gotten in the swimming ranks in the United States.
Wow.
But I didn't think of that at the time. In retrospect, I kind of started to deduce that. But I was just wanted to be the best swimmer I could be that day. I wanted to go out there and win a medal, and I did. And, I got a few questions after that. It was like, how does it feel to be representing the few black swimmers that there are in the United States? And, I felt a sense of pride by it, but it didn't, and it still doesn't regulate my life. It doesn't fuel me every day to say, I've got to go out there and represent black swimmers. I've just got to be the best swimmer I could be, and everything else takes care of itself.
Gotcha. So it was people who was actually giving you more of the acknowledgement. Was it more from the press that you were receiving, more from the coaches of the team? What was, or just basically random interviews that actually, to where you were actually acknowledging the fact that, yeah, I guess I am the highest black person receiving this accomplishment, but where did the source really come from at the time?
Well, it was really all the press, and as a member of the press now, it doesn't surprise me because you're always looking for that angle. And the first time I felt that, and I mentioned this in my book, was at the Olympic Festival, which is an event that doesn't take place anymore, but it was kind of an event where, at least at the swimming portion of it, it was a chance for young swimmers to really kind of feel what the Olympic experience can be like. Yeah. We had award ceremonies and everything like that. It was kind of a cool deal. And this was in 1990 in Minneapolis, and I had won the 100 breaststroke. And you're in this room, it's the media room, and you're sitting in this room at this table by yourself, and there are about a dozen journalists in the room asking questions. And literally the first question was, so how does it feel to be the first black swimmer to win a gold medal at the Olympic Festival? And I was taken aback by it because I didn't know that was true. Because nobody came up to me and said, if you win this race, you'll be the first black swimmer to win an Olympic gold medal at the Olympic Festival. Right. And so it took me aback, but, I was pretty quick about my answer. I said, it's a great feeling, but, I hope it continues to make a path for future black swimmers to continue to excel at this level and beyond. And it kind of escalated from that. And the event was being televised by ESPN, and they had me sit down in front of the camera the next day and talk about my experience of being a black swimmer. Oh, wow. And it was kind of cool to be able to tell people nationwide what it's like. And I basically told them, I don't think of myself as a black swimmer. I'm just a swimmer. I mean, nobody, Michael Phelps doesn't think of himself as a white swimmer. He thinks of himself as a swimmer. You don't think about your race and letting that affect how you swim. Maybe you could think about, in a way I could help further the cause of other black swimmers. But if you think about that during the competition, it's going to detract from the goal, which is, to win. And, inside the swimming community, nobody ever said, we're so proud of you for being the first black swimmer to win a gold medal at the Olympic Festival, or we're so proud of you for being the only black swimmer to make the Pan American Games team, or we're so proud of you for being the first black swimmer to win an international individual gold medal. Nobody said that. And again, it was an unspoken thing. Right. And, the fact that nobody tried to kick me out of the sport, I think was encouragement enough for me. And, the fact that the press was interested made me happy, but it didn't it didn't throw me off my game. I mean, it was good that there was this angle and I could kind of be the voice for minority swimmers. And I still take a sense of pride in the legacy that I've left in swimming and that I continue to leave in swimming. But there's never a sense that you have to represent your race every single day, because that could be debilitating. It could be very tiring. And again, it could detract from the main goal.
I mean, when I look at, other sports like, the Williams sisters, for instance, and I'm not sure exactly have they ever received that same way of actually the acknowledgement of the whole factor, because the whole thing is to win. You really want to win. But I would kind of think it's kind of a notch, a little gold medal in your head, just to say,
exactly.
I got this.
Exactly.
So I'm pretty sure, but especially in a dominated sport, which allow a lot more minorities are now coming into tennis, and more minorities are somewhat coming into golf a little bit, or at least trying it out. But definitely, I can see where it's still kind of a little mental note, like, okay, I got this. But now to throw the little monkey wrench in there, when was the feeling that you had to say, well, wait a minute, my feelings of being a male swimmer in this field, and to kind of feel somewhat out of place at times, because you probably didn't know that you were part of the LGBT. I'm pretty sure LGBT was not even an abbreviation at that time. But to say the word gay, when did that ever come into play during your collegiate career, your professional career? When did it ever come up?
Well, I knew that I was gay from when I was about 10, 11 years old. I mean, I didn't fully know what it meant, but I knew that when I looked at another male person, the feelings that I had weren't what most people have when they look at other males look at other males. And I started to think about it and understand it. And I was fine with it when I was, 10, 11, 12 years old. I was fine with it with myself. But I knew looking outwardly that I couldn't just say, hey, everybody, I'm gay. I like this boy in my class.
Right.
I knew I couldn't do that. And I knew exactly why. I mean, I watched television, I watched the news, and I watched, at the time, the AIDS epidemic was pretty strong. And so I knew that there was this stigma among the LGBT community. But there was still something in me that said I should be happy about who I am. I know who I am, and I'm proud of who I am. But you add that into the fact that in the Black community, being gay is not something that's celebrated very well. And I knew even in my family, as much as they supported my swimming, would not support me coming out as gay. And so I didn't tell anybody. I told maybe two people in my life from the time I really knew what I was until 21 years old. And it didn't affect my swimming as much until I got to college, when I was an adult and I, was fully aware of my sexuality and wanted to explore that. And I actually did so my freshman year of college and really started to understand what being a gay person was, not just sexually, but socially, and was really comfortable with being a part of that community. But at the same time, I was part of this swim team that's like a family, because we spend so much time together. We're swimming together 4 hours a day. We do another hour of weights. We have meetings. We travel together, and we all knew each other so well. And I'd sit in our locker room, and we'd have these team meetings where we always had the opportunity to speak freely about anything. And I always said, okay, this is going to be my opportunity to stand in front of my friends and my quote unquote brothers and say, look, this is who I am. And if you don't like it, then you don't like it, and perhaps I'll leave. But I didn't want to have that weight on my shoulders, because as I got older, it really started to get heavier and heavier, that weight did, to the point where my swimming did get affected, because I was really nervous about, was anybody going to find out? or I really have to tell somebody, and why am I not telling anybody? And the fact that I wasn't telling anybody weighed on me, and I said, why am I being such a coward? I know who I am. I'm happy with who I am, but I just can't tell my closest friends. I can't tell my family for fear of just that one person who would reject me. Whether it's my friends or my family, I didn't want that rejection. I was afraid of that rejection, of what that would mean. Even though I knew that there would be people in that room who would say, oh, Jeff, we don't care, or Jeff, we knew, and, treat me no differently. And so it did affect me a lot. And I didn't have the best end to my college career that I had wanted, just because of that. And I look back and having talked to a lot of my college teammates later, a lot of them knew I was gay. I would kind of sneak out of this house I was living in with some other guys on my team and go out to a gay bar. And it's like I didn't tell them, but they kind of deduced I was going somewhere that I wasn't proud to tell them. And, you kind of put the pieces together. Okay, he's going somewhere he doesn't want us to know, and it's probably to a gay bar. And he's, and I, would sometimes not come home that night, or come home very late and try to sneak back into my room without anybody knowing. And, nobody asked questions, but I kind of wish somebody did, because it would have been a gateway for me to say, okay, yeah, here it is. I'm gay. But just to volunteer that information was very, very tough for me to deal with, or that fear of just that one rejection. I was on a team of 30 guys, and just to have one guy say, okay, I don't like this, you'll burn in hell. That's scary. Even if the other 29 stood up and said, Jeff, we're behind you. We support you. We love you no matter what. Let's get out there and swim. I would have been thinking about that one guy and what could I do to repair this relationship. So in the end, it just really did cripple me to the point where I did not swim as well as I wanted to my junior and senior years. I swam well, but I didn't. I know I could have swum better. And to this day, I always look back, and not in regret, but just thinking, would that have helped if I had come out to my teammates? Would that have made me a better swimmer? Would that have been more relaxed, more free? And it's not that I would have, been talking about my sex life every day in swim practice, but, I could have just been able to say, hey, guys, these are my non-swimming friends. Invite some gay friends to my house. Gotcha. Or just say, hey, guys, I'm going out to a gay bar. I'll be back around 1 and see you later, and not feel like I'm sneaking out and not being truthful to the people who are closest to me at the time. And it was the same with my family. I go home every Christmas, and I knew that my mother would be very much against it, me coming out. And I knew that the rest of my family would be pretty much okay with it. And my brother, I knew would be totally fine with it. He would support me no matter what. But again, it's that one person, and that one person in my family would be my mother, who is probably the most important figure to me in my family, especially because she was my only parent growing up. And so to lose that relationship was very scary for me. And I wasn't ready to lose it, even though I was an independent person. I was living in Texas, and she was in St. Louis, and but I didn't want to lose that connection we had, because we were very, very close. Yeah. And the fact that I didn't come out to her until I was 25, it really hurt me, because I felt like I was lying to her. I mean, she'd ask these ambiguous questions that would kind of lead to, how's your personal life going? And I would avoid the questions, or just dodge some of them. And I felt bad doing it. And I think it affected my swimming career. I didn't make any Olympic teams. I could have. I think I could have made maybe not the 1992 team, but the 1996 team. But I just had gotten so tired with not the deception, but just skirting around my life and not being able to blend all aspects of my life together, that I think I just lost interest in the sport. And I was lucky that I was so talented to at least be able to qualify for the Olympic trials in 92 and 96. Yes. But the fact that I, was nowhere near, I didn't perform anywhere near the level that I could have. Gotcha. I knew it wasn't just because of my physical preparation. I think mentally I just didn't have it. And again, I don't look back and regret on it, because I've done some great things in my life before and since. And I'm glad that I've been able to come out and still be a great swimmer and not have that cloud my mind. But it just, I think about that now because I know there are so many swimmers out there who are afraid to come out, even in this day and age where so many gay athletes are coming out and being proud about it.
Gotcha.
I know there are some who are looking around them and saying, my best friend may not like this, and I don't want to lose my best friend if I come out as gay. And so I'll just stay silent. It's very telling that swimming is one of the last Olympic sports in the United States that does not have an openly gay member of the Olympic team. We still haven't had that. And, we've never had an openly gay swimmer. Now, there have been closeted gay swimmers. They have come out later.
Yes.
There's not been a swimmer on the Olympic team who has gone to the Olympic team and been openly gay, or made the Olympic team and then before the Olympics or even during the Olympics saying, yeah, I'm gay, and my partner's up in the stands cheering for me. And that's something that we've really fought hard to have change before the 2020 Olympics. I've talked to a number of people, and they've said that it's possible that this could happen, but among the openly gay swimmers that we have right now, none of them are at that Olympic team level. But we know, it's just a you look at the statistics of all the millions of swimmers out there, and you look at the fact that there are about 100 swimmers on the national team, that there has to be some gay swimmers on it. And they just need the courage and the support to say, okay, I could come out and still be a great swimmer. No one will reject me. It won't affect my performance. I think it'll actually help their performance.
It's kind
of. But I can. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I can look back on my life and say, yeah, I know that probably there will be people out there who support me, but I don't want to upset the dynamic if there's one person, who may be, my teammate in the same event I'm swimming or in my relay, who's going to say, I don't want to swim on that relay with the gay guy because it goes against my religion. Somebody may say that. And, I understand that fear, whatever it may be, rational or irrational. But it would be a great day to be able to celebrate the first openly gay American swimmer on the team, whether it be black or white, because it needs to happen, because it'll allow the sport to get over that last barrier that it's been, it hasn't gotten over yet.
What the question that comes to my head is actually several from the statement you just said. So first, let's go a little bit earlier here. So when you're looking at the difference between your performance of not necessarily being somewhat submerged in the gay lifestyle, or to be a part of the gay community and to be able to see the same people as you, and comparison to the prior to being in college, to receiving your full ride and everything, and looking at your performance, was it because you had more of an opportunity to witness people like yourself at that time versus not? Because you just kept on doing exactly what it is you were doing. You went on and got the bronze in the Pan American in Cuba. You went on and got a third place in meter national championships, etc. prior to, and you're still doing all these things before you got to college. Was that because of your exposure of not necessarily having it in comparison?
Yes, in a way. I think when I was in high school, I just was happy with the fact that I knew I was gay, and I didn't feel like that I needed to explore that or even wanted to explore it any further. I mean, I was actually kind of seeing somebody at the time, and it was very secretive. But I didn't feel I needed to explore beyond that. And I think personally in my own life, I didn't feel the weight of, even the fact that to tell my mother, because I didn't feel it was necessary at the time. And it was when I got to college, yes, when I was able to, in high school, I couldn't go out, I had a driver's license, but I didn't have a car of my own. I couldn't just, of course I was 17 years old. I couldn't get into a gay bar, but,
right.
When I was older and able to actually experience and seek these things out on my own and have the ability to do so on my own, it started to open up this whole other world, because I guess when I thought about being gay, it was just the sexual part of it and not the social part of that. This is a community of people who, come together, not just for sex, but just because you have this common trait and you celebrate it in a special way, within your own community. And I found a lot of friends very quickly from that when I got to college. And I really liked it. And I knew that this was a part of my life that I wanted to share with other people. I wanted them to know that this was a part of my life and that I'm off doing these things. And it hurt me that I had to do them in secret. And I think that's what really started to weigh me down, because I didn't like lying to people. I didn't like saying, I just went out. I went to a movie I went to a movie, but I went with 3 gay friends. I didn't say I went to a movie with friends. I just said I went to a movie, and people didn't think, that's weird that you go to a movie by yourself. Because I actually did sometimes go to a movie by myself.
Gotcha.
But, I hated the lying. I hated the omissions. And again, it did weigh me down. And I just hated being around my friends so much, because I was afraid of the questions they would ask. And I was fearful of the questions they would ask. And so, it affects you mentally. And if your mental capacity is not 100% where it needs to be, it can affect your athletic performance. Gotcha. And it did over the course of time. It did that. I was very fortunate to have a kind of a great sophomore year swimming wise. And, but I think it was just after that, I was really trying to find that time, because I had friends who said, it's okay to come out. You can come out to your teammates. And they were trying to give me guidance on how to do that. And I said, I'd love to be able to do that. But like I said, it's just that fear of rejection. And that fear can be very crippling. It can overtake a lot of the positives in your life. That one little fear can just overwhelm you to the point where you can't think about anything else but trying to conquer that fear. And when you don't conquer that fear, it makes you feel even worse mentally and physically. And it affected me. I was a fine student. I didn't, flunk out of any of my classes. I got my degree in 4.5 years. But I think that's a little bit different. I could deal with classes. I didn't, these were people I didn't really know. My classmates, I could kind of just block them out and just deal with studies. But when you're in athletics, like I said, you're with these people a lot, and you can't just, say that they're just people and I could block them out and just live my life. You can't do that. So I just really wish it had been possible in my college career to at least have the same viewpoint as I did when I was in high school, of just, this is who I am. But I knew that I couldn't just keep that to myself. There was a point where, everybody was talking about their personal lives and who they were dating and who they weren't dating, what they were doing outside of swimming. And I couldn't do that. And I felt bad about it. I didn't cry myself to sleep at night about it, but, I felt alone very much. I felt isolated, and, you don't want to feel that way on a college team, whatever sport it is.
Now, when you look at other sports, you do see certain sports maybe a little bit more welcoming to it, or maybe not. When you start thinking about track, figure skating, I'm not sure if basketball is completely that welcoming, but maybe I can possibly see being the NBA a little bit more welcoming to it than versus the NFL. What is your take on some of the sports and how they're tackling this particular topic in comparison to others?
Well, you talk about some of those other sports, especially tennis, of being accepting of LGBT athletes. It's because they've had openly gay athletes at the highest ranks. And so people can look up to where they want to go, and they can see there's someone like me up there. And so I can do that too. And so the fact that we don't have an openly gay Olympian in swimming, I think really hurts a lot of people, because they're afraid to even think about going to that next level, because if they're outed or if they're already openly gay, will they be accepted if they make, let's say, even just the world championship team, which is a step below making the Olympic team? And in this day and age, I have no doubt that an openly gay Olympian would be welcome. An openly gay coach would be welcome. But there's just that one little barrier. And I really wish I could tell you, Chris, what it would be to get over that barrier. But until that one person speaks out and says, you know, my name is Jeff and I'm an Olympian and I'm also gay, it's going to be very hard for this sport to really progress beyond, you know, a high school swimmer coming out to a swim team, and that's great. But, you know, he's not at that level of, you know, maybe in a couple of years he's going to make the Olympic team. We're still waiting for that upper level swimmer to be okay with coming out and saying, I could do this and I could be that voice and that face for that kid who wants to swim at this level but is afraid to. So, you know, that's why it's been more acceptable in track and tennis and those other sports, and why maybe it's becoming a little bit more accepted in basketball, because there has been openly gay basketball players, professional basketball players. And of course, with Michael Sam coming out and for a very brief time being drafted into the NFL, I think that's helped the NFL in a way. And even though there are things in place inside USA Swimming that prevents discrimination based on your sexual orientation, and there are things in place in USA Swimming that even provides blueprints for coaches and other athletes to talk to their friends about wanting to come out and things like that. It's still just that there's that voice and that face that's needed. And I'm not going to be the one to push that person into the spotlight. I don't think anybody should be pushed into that spotlight, but it needs to happen. And like I said, we've had an African American win an Olympic gold medal in 2016, and now that that's happened, you know, there's been an uptick in participation for African Americans in swimming, and there's been a more motivation for African American swimmers to say, now I know it's possible. You know, there have been in the past 10 years, actually in every Olympics since 2008, there's been at least one African American swimmer on the Olympic team, and so there's acknowledgement that can happen. And I'm so glad that that's happened, because like I said, I've been part of that journey. I've created those steps toward that journey, and I've been blessed to be a part of it. And to see that happen has been great. But I'm also looking at myself as a gay swimmer and thinking, I hope that I've started that journey, even though I was closeted at the time, of someone to say, yeah, Jeff was really good as a closet swimmer. Think what he could be if he were openly gay. I don't want to have that same effect on myself. And so I'm going to come out to my family. I'm going to come out to my teammates. And then I'm going to work really hard to be that first openly gay Olympian.
You know, when I began to, you know, listen to your story, number one, I started saying to myself, well, wait a minute. Let me just throw in a curveball in here and just say, if I am, I'm pretty sure there is that one particular college athlete right now who's probably is just more happy to consider to be probably one of the top Latinos in whatever sport that he or she may be in, but they kind of say, well, I'm gay, so what? You know, I'm just me, and I'm not necessarily have to tell the world about it. I'm just who I am, and that's just it. And they kind of raise the flag of more of their country higher than they actually raise the LGBT portion within their mindset and their life. In comparison to where you say, you know, I'm a black athlete, that's great and all, but I just want to be the best who I am. And the LGBT portion was something that you kind of had to put aside, because also the community wasn't necessarily, it didn't always invite it. It didn't necessarily invite it. What would you say now? Like, if you were to actually be swimming now, which one would be, or both would be, one of the things that you would kind of say, you know what, this is what I really want more to my environment to really foster, to a welcoming LGBT environment, a welcoming black LGBT environment, or just LGBT, or just African American in general?
I think you could be all things at once. I don't think that there is one that has to have a priority over the other, because they're all equally parts of who you are. They're parts of who I am. And I pushed one part of my side down for many years, and it was all the years of pushing that down affected my performance. It affected my social life. It affected my personal life in many ways. And if I had just been able to say, look, I'm a swimmer, I'm Black, I'm gay, I'm a breaststroker, which in swimming, being a breaststroker is already, you're one of the weirder people. Breaststroke is not one of the common strokes that people do. So, you know, if you could live your life as all the things that you are, you don't have to say, well, I'll just worry about being gay later, because that's going to affect your life. It's going to affect your personal life. And you're going to feel like you have nothing, you can't identify with yourself outside the pool. And so you put everything you have in your swimming, and then you start to become a different person. You don't feel comfortable with yourself outside the pool, and so you start to train so much that you come to the pool all the time. You want to work harder, work more. You don't want to leave the pool, and you start to overtrain, and you start to break down your body, and you're not going to be the swimmer you want to be, and you don't have fun. And I think that was a big part of what happened with me, is because I accepted who I was internally, but if I didn't accept who I was and just show who I was externally, I could have fun with the sport. I was having a lot of fun with the sport when I was in high school. I kind of enjoyed going to swim practice. I loved going to swim meets because I'm very competitive and I love the competition. But it started to become a grind a little bit in college, because it was like, oh gosh, what if today's the day that somebody tries to out me or something like that?
Gotcha.
And if there's that swimmer who says, I'm Latino, I'm also a lesbian, I'm on the cusp of making the national team, and if it happens to come out that I'm gay, well, I can deny it or I can push it aside. You can't push it aside. And in the 21st century, you shouldn't push it aside. You shouldn't try to be 3/4 of a person just because you're afraid of what people are going to think of that 1/4 that you're pushing down.
Gotcha.
And again, that's what hurt me a lot in my life, not just in swimming. It hurt me in my life because in certain aspects, I was afraid to tell Black people that I met that I was a swimmer, because I knew they'd look at me weird, like, what? You look like you should be a football player.
Gotcha.
And, most of the time that was what I encountered when I walked around campus. If I wasn't wearing my Texas swimming shirt, people would look at me as like, what position you play in basketball or football. They just assumed that I played those sports. And it was like I was a swimmer, and they looked at me funny. And, but I wore my Texas swimming shirt and still do with a lot of great pride. And I think it does throw a few people off. They're looking at a Black person as a swimmer, like, huh. But just to reinforce it, you could be all things at once. And I think that's what, that's why a lot of these celebrated LGBT athletes like Gus Kenworthy, Adam Rippon, I mean, they're celebrated in not just in the LGBT community, but in life, because they are who they are. They're kind of being talked about as the LGBT Olympians, but that's one thing. They're Olympians, they're LGBT, they're skaters, they're skiers, they're a lot of things at once. Adam and Gus could have gone to the Olympics and just said, I'm a skier, I'm a skater, and leave it at that.
Yeah.
But I don't think they would have been as happy. They wouldn't have had as fun. They wouldn't have achieved what they achieved, because they would have just had to hide this part from the media, from their coaches, their teammates, and that's no fun.
Right.
So it's possible, Chris. It's possible for somebody to be out there and be everything they are at once and still excel in this sport.
Now, after you were done with the Olympic trials and you retired in 1998, was that the time when everything, that pressure of being out, it was gone? With that, you chose that particular time to come out. Is that the reason why?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was done with swimming. And so I moved up I was living in Colorado Springs at the time, and I was living at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, which is it's like living in an aquarium, because you're all you do is eat, sleep, train. And that's all you do. And sometimes they have tour groups that come in and they watch you train so they could see you train. And it was a very small environment. There were only 3 or 4 of us at the time. There were 3 or 4 swimmers at the time. So it was a much closer family. And I was so even more afraid of coming out to them, because the odds of one person not liking me were a lot higher and a lot more crippling if that one person didn't like me, and especially if it was my coach. And I didn't really know a lot about my coach. I knew that 2 of my teammates would be totally fine with it, but again, it was that one person And that one person happened to be my roommate. And I didn't want that one person to say, I can't be in an apartment suite with Jeff, because what's he going to do? Is he going to bring somebody home? Is he going to come on to me? What's going to happen? And I was just afraid of all that. And it affected me. And when I didn't have the performances that I wanted to, I just kind of looked at myself and said, maybe my swimming career is over. And so I packed it up and I moved to Denver, a little far further north of Colorado Springs. And a weight was lifted off. I just was able to just not have the pressures of being a professional swimmer on me. I could go out and live my life. I had a job. I could go out and just do whatever I wanted. I went to gay bars every weekend, not for hookups, but just to kind of just be in the community. I wanted to just see more what being in the community was. And I loved it so much that, I was out to my coworkers, and none of them cared. Even the ones I kind of felt like, if they don't care, they don't care. Or if they don't like it, they don't like it. I didn't care. I was like, it's time to be accepting of who I am and love who I am and not care what other people think, because this is who I am, and your opinion is not going to change who I am internally and within, just in the fibers of my being. And I knew at the time that I said, why didn't I feel this way when I was swimming? Because I felt so happier. I was so proud of myself for just being able to go to work and say, this is who I am. Yep, I broke up with that guy, who I was seeing for a few months. It was great to talk about it. And then when I found Master Swimming, I actually found it through a gay swim team in Denver.
Oh, wow.
I went to my first Pride Parade in 1999, and it was the best thing ever. I mean, just being surrounded by so many gay people with so many walks of life, and just thinking, I kept thinking, my gosh, that person's probably a third grade teacher. He's walking around in drag.
Right.
And I just thought that's the best thing in the world, to be able to be open and free and love who you are. And so we're in a park, and there were these booths, and I was walking around looking at the different things, and there was a booth advertising a gay swim team, and it just blew my mind. And so I talked with the people, and I didn't say who I was or what my experience was in swimming. They just said, can you swim a length of the pool? And I just said, yes, I can swim a length of the pool. And I joined the team, and it was 30 gay men and women all in this one pool. And I didn't have to say I'm gay. And it wasn't a prerequisite. I mean, they accepted straight people, but, I just felt, wow, what would this be like, being on a swim team of all gay men and women? And my first day, I got into the pool, and, I swam, and, I was a little bit out of shape. I hadn't really swum in a while, but, I was the fastest on the team right away, and everybody was impressed. And, but the most impressive thing, they always ask the new members about who we are, and where, what our jobs are, where we grew up and everything. The last question is married or single? And I said single, and everybody, woo! And I just felt like, gosh, on my swim team in college, you could have nobody asked that question.
Right.
And, everybody just felt great. And we went out to eat afterwards. And the cloud was gone, Chris. It was gone. I just had so much fun in the sport again. I was smiling. I couldn't wait to go back and join my friends in swimming. I was and still am the type of person who doesn't like to just go and just swim and train, but I know that I need to do it if I want to be the best competitive swimmer I want to be.
Right.
But, ever since then, I have always been out, and I've never looked back. I've never been afraid to tell somebody that, I'm a gay swimmer. I'm married. I have a husband who also swims. And we talk about, everybody knows that, and nobody's afraid of that. Nobody walks away from me. They turn the other way because, here comes that gay swimmer.
Yeah.
And but the biggest thing is I'm happier and I have more fun, and the results of my swimming show that. I mean, I'm swimming almost as fast as I did in college, which is not really something that you do in your 40s.
Wow.
And I think it's just because I have fun, and I am every aspect of who I am is out there, and I'm not afraid to just show that. And I don't prance around in high heels or in drag or anything like that. I don't sing show tunes on the swim deck, on the pool deck. But I mean, I'm not. If I feel like belting out a show tune, I'll do it. I mean, it's just fine. I mean, okay, I'll do it. I'm not going to be afraid of, that guy doesn't like guys and dolls. Okay, well, I'll sing another one then. That's just, it's okay. And it goes back to what I said before. You can be all things at once in this sport. You can't be afraid to push one thing aside. And I'm living proof of that. And I know I look back often and say, gosh, I really wish I had been able to be this person when I was in my early 20s. But there are no takebacks in this life, and you just use what you have now. I mean, I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life. I'm happily married. I have I'm my own boss. I run my own company with my husband, and I'm a great swimmer, and I have a lot of fun with what I do. And I wake up in the morning with a great outlook to my life because I know I can go out there in the community and not be afraid to show all aspects of my life.
Right.
And I can't express that enough of how liberating that is to be able to do that. Now, if I were in my 40s 20 years ago in this sport, probably wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad I'm able to be in a time where it's totally accepted and nobody bats an eye at it. And I just really hope that, the younger swimmers who have read my book, some of them have said, you've given me I see a lot of myself in you, and I don't want to end up being that person. And they've told me later that they've come out to their family and they're really happy about it, and they lead very productive lives. But of course, they've done it after they've done their swimming career. And I've talked to them and I said, if why didn't you come out? I said, for the exact same reason. I was afraid of rejection. And this is why there's a high suicide rate among the LGBT community, because people don't feel that there's that support, or even that there's that fear of being rejected by that one person. It's so crippling that you can't find a way out other than the wrong way. And I don't like hearing that. And, as I don't know what I could do personally. I mean, I've counseled a couple of young swimmers about it, and I've told them, I said, you've got to just wake up in the morning and be happy with who you are first, and then whatever anybody else says, you can just bounce it off you, because you're still happy with yourself, and you can adjust your life to get the negativity out of your life and just live positively.
Is there anyone better that would be able to kind of help push that aspect of being true to yourself and to be able to come out? Because I'm noticing most of the athletes who do come out, most of them definitely come out in retirement. A lot of I think the younger generation is a lot more accepting, but I think there's a certain generation that says, not now. Just not now. And there's certain sports that are a little bit more welcoming to it than others. I still think NFL has a bit of a ways to go. I still think that hockey has a ways to go. It's considered to be a man's sport. It's going to be like a quote unquote male dominated sport. And so a lot of people, may not necessarily see that welcome mat as some sports do. So is there, especially for swimming, being the fact that you wrote a book with all the accomplishments, you're an author, you've actually contributed to several newspapers and within the swimming industry and articles, etc. Is that something that you probably should say to yourself, man, you know what, maybe I should take this on a little bit more actively within universities and doing more speeches, etc., or not?
Oh, I'd love to be able to do something like that. That was one of the reasons I wrote the book, is to lend my voice and say there is somebody out there who has lived this life, and look at the outcome I've had, positive and negatives of it. And, like I've said, people have come to me and written to me and all that and said, I've seen some of myself in you. And, some of the outcomes that you've had in your life are the outcomes I've had in my life. And I'm glad to know that there is a way out. That there is a happy end to, or at least a happy chapter coming up. And then there are some people who said, I don't want to have the outcome that you had. I don't want to go through my college career afraid to be around my teammates, or push being a gay swimmer down, because I look what happened to you, and I don't want that same thing to happen to you, because I fear it's happening. And I would love to have that. And I have spoken to a few groups when the book first came out. And like I said, I've counseled some swimmers privately, but none of them have been to that level of getting to the top of the swimming community at the Olympian level or the national team level yet. Because as I said, that's really the person who's going to really drive this forward. Right. I could say, yeah, I was on the national team, but I was closeted.
Yeah.
And so my acts weren't really what I would say or what everybody should do. I got lucky. I mean, I was still able to do some great things in the sport while being closeted. And I think that's a lot of the talent and the hard work that I put in just paid off. And I was, like I said, extremely lucky. But a lot of people aren't that lucky. And I've heard that and I've seen that. I know that there's got to be some closeted gay swimmers that are on the national team. The statistics just show that there has to be. But nobody's really ready to stand out there and say, I'm a lesbian, I'm a gay man, and yeah, I'm on the national team or I'm making the Olympic team. You know, the closest we ever got was a swimmer named Tom Lutchinger. And after he made the world championship team a couple years later, after he didn't make the Olympic team, he came out as gay. And he was still a top level swimmer. And I got to talk to him before and after he came out. And I saw him much happier person, much more joyful, enjoyed the sport more. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to make the Olympic team, which would have been a huge deal and would have been very exciting. But that was as high as we got. You know, somebody who got to the level of being able to say, look, it's possible. I think probably the responsibility that was laid on him as a gay athlete once he openly came out, I think that may have weighed him down just a little bit. Okay. But not. I think it was just also just, you know, he just wasn't able to be fast enough to make the Olympic team. And we just look at it as just plain and simple. It wasn't because he was a gay swimmer and, you know, he was nervous about being an openly gay Olympian. I just think plain and simple, he just wasn't fast enough to make the Olympic team. Gotcha. So it's so possible. I don't want to name names. I know that I look at some people and I say, okay, you've got to be a lesbian or you've got to be a gay man. You know, yeah. But, you know, I want to just go up to them and say, it's okay, you know, or do you want to just talk? But I don't want to be wrong, first of all. Yeah. or I don't want to push that person to say, well, maybe I should. And maybe it's not time for them. Maybe they're not ready.
Right.
It's got to be something that they're ready to do. As much as I can stand on a soapbox and say, we need our first openly gay Olympian and we need it to be on the 2020 Olympic team. As much as I could say that, I don't want to be the one that pushes somebody out of the closet before they're ready.
Right.
If it happens to be 2024, that's fine. You know, it took many years for us to get an African American on the Olympic team. But it finally happened, and now it's happening in every Olympics now. So, you know, once we get an openly gay Olympian on the U.S. swim team, I think it'll happen all the time. And I think more people will start to come out like, okay, she came out, finally, okay, I know there's somebody else like me, and I'll do it too. And I bet you there are a lot of people that are closeted, and they probably all know each other. They probably walk around deck saying, I know we're gay. We'll just keep it between us. Right. I hope that they're also talking about, I don't think this is good for us, just as individuals or as for the swimming community, for us to not have this side of us be out there because they are role models. I mean, they're at the top of the swimming community right now, being on the national team, and they have people looking up to them, whether they're, you know, gay, straight, or young swimmers. They're looking up to them and saying, I want to be like them, but, you know, maybe, okay, they're closet. Maybe that's what I have to be.
I kind of look at, what I hear in your voice now. I'm kind of thinking, well, it kind of sounds like there should be another book coming out. Do you ever think about putting out another book?
Oh, yes. People ask me all the time about a sequel to my book. And I just need to live more of my life. You know, I did leave the book, the ending of the book open to a sequel. I mean, it was, the ending of the book was a year before I got married. And so I'm sure a lot of people want to read about, you know, what it's like to be married, what it's like to not just be quote unquote married at a time when it wasn't legal nationwide, but what it was like to actually feel like I could walk around and walk into a government office and say, yes, my spouse, who has a male name, he's male, and just what it's like to be able to be on a pool deck and be a gay man, and just to do all the things I'm doing now, doing all the broadcast stuff I'm doing now. And, I'm on camera, and I see myself on camera, and I have my wedding ring on. And I think people probably don't know that, okay, they see I'm married, but they don't know it's to a man. Or maybe they do, and they're like, okay, good for him. Jeff is really showing us what you could do. There are no barriers in this sport to, whether you're in the pool or out of it, to be able to give back to the sport as a gay man and be happy and proud about it. And yeah, there's a lot of stories I want to tell about what's happened to me since the book came out. I just want to live more of it. I mean, right now, I've got some of those things in my head. It's like, yeah, it'd be great to talk about this and this and this and this. I don't know when that's going to happen, but yeah, if I think it's the time, then yeah, Odd Man Out Volume 2 will be out on bookshelves when it's time.
Well, one thing's for sure. I mean, I definitely enjoyed your story. I really enjoyed, seeing, how the life progressed and how some of the things of just not necessarily being completely true to yourself can actually affect your athleticism, your mind. It really can actually do things, and also how you can also turn it around. So I really appreciate this story. And the book is still out. The book, you can still be able to get this from Amazon, correct?
Yes, absolutely. It's going to be, I'm never going to take it out of print because I still see that people are buying it, and that just makes me really happy. I don't know what has driven them to get the book now, but whatever it is, I want to continue to make it available to anybody who wants it. So yeah, it's always on Amazon, on Kindle. Yeah, please, everybody go get it.
Awesome. And again, the book is Odd Man Out, True Stories of a Gay Black Swimmer. Thank you so much, Jeff Commings. Again, this is my first time with an athlete, coming on the show, and I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the sports in the industry and all those good things. You definitely fulfilled that. So I appreciate everything and your time also coming on the show. And again, I'll make sure all the information of Jeff Commings, where you can follow him, watch him, get his articles, whatever the case may be, that will be on the podcast info, along with also the information regarding the actual podcast. Thank you again, Jeff. And this is Chris from Brothaspeak Podcast signing off. Have a wonderful day.